Hi, Alex. Start video. There we are. Hi, Alex.
Hey, Robin. How are you?
Good.
How's it going?
Although I must say, this gorgeous weather we've been having for the last handful of days makes it really hard to sort of concentrate, I guess.
Focus,
With the combination of the sort of pandemic excuse plus the good weather excuse, it's like
I have
to overcome.
I have a feeling nobody's gonna be working in Toronto in the summer.
Yeah. So maybe the thing is to close the group for whatever, June, July, August, and what the hell?
Maybe. But there's always WordPress problems though. That's the thing.
Too true.
Oh, Richard.
Hello. How are you, Alex?
And there's Jim.
Good evening.
Hey, Jim.
Good evening. This is an all-male crowd so far. That's unusual in the last, what, 4 or 5 months?
Who's Claire here?
Claire's here.
Emily's here.
Claire and an Emily. I think they
Hello.
object to that statement.
There we go.
I've been called
Well,
worse.
for a moment, it was true.
Just for a few seconds. All right, we have a few more people coming on board here. Set up my while we're waiting for everybody to join. Our company, New Path, actually relaunched our website this month in WordPress. First time we've actually did it. We're pretty proud of it. We used GeneratePress Foundry, which is a cool framework for building themes. And we adopted one of the existing themes that they have and just kind of modified it and customized it, but very speedy theme, especially on mobile. And we're using only the block editor. So no page builder, just block editor for making changes. And it's pretty cool.
Well, I've just moved from Elementor to the block editor. I'm using the Cadence Cadence Pro.
Yeah.
Enhanced block editor. I find it really speeds up the website.
I love Cadence. Yeah, those are great blocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you using Stackable or Cubely?
I haven't used those yet, but there's going to be a lot of blocks out there in the next.
We won't be hitting the bricks. We'll be hitting the blocks.
We'll be hitting the blocks. Yeah, it's really interesting experience, kind of like getting used to using the block editor versus like editing stuff. You have to, there's still a bit of like I still find like some certain blogs I imported are using the classic editor inside of the block editor because we imported posts. But with time, like I think they'll kind of age out, so to speak. And then, but there's a long way to go for that whole thing to be integrated into the site. But
Well, I think we're also entering a new period of language confusion. I've noticed now that the WordPress core people working on this, or the Gutenberg project people, let's put it that way, have now, I think they're up to 6 different editors that they make reference to. There's a widget editor, there's the full site editor, there's the block editor, there's the template editor, and I'm not clear why they're not all the block editor in just one mode or another, depending on the, the type of block that's in question. But it just, it's the usual problem of terminology that people don't control and think about beforehand, and they just sort of throw around, and it just generates. I'm sure for a lot of people, they're looking for different editors. Where's the widget editor? Where's the the full site editor? As opposed to switch into full site editing, and what you're using is the full site editor.
this is a homepage of our site just to give you an idea of like how this is actually normally this would be done completely in some kind of page builder, right?
Right.
This is all Gutenberg. Let's see if I can get my stuff out of the way. Oops. Oops. So here's the name of the page, right? You can see it's hidden. So the content title is hidden, and here is a bunch of text, which is just this is just obviously a block right here. Here is a picture to the left. If you were to ask me how to move this over here, I probably wouldn't be able to answer right now because it's not clear that there's columns here, right? There's clearly
Yeah,
some kind of
horizontal movement is a real problem.
horizontal.
I-
Vertical is not.
I've had some experience with that. Finally sort of figured it out, I think, in terms of trying to get a picture side by side with text.
Yeah.
And I think I have that working. It's still a bit of a try it and play around a bit, but there is a way you can slide a photo into a block.
But here's actually the key of what
Yeah,
is completely non-obvious here. So when you click this overview control, you see that there's this container here. And this container is actually what encompasses this whole thing here, right? It's not at all visible on this thing, but it's there. And that container has a grid. And there's a grid. And so here's where Gutenberg, for me, so far really falls down, in the sense that there's this implicit structure here that's completely non-obvious to somebody that's editing this until they actually look at this control structure. Yeah. And this is really what's happening. This is the actual, and this is totally like controlled from here. I think this will change eventually with time. But
well, I'll tell you, I mentioned to you when I was doing that recap post, yeah. Alex, the very first block was the YouTube block. Yeah. And I had took me 10 minutes to get rid of the top block after I'd inserted the one I wanted below that, and now wanted to get rid of the old, now obsolete one. Yeah. It took that long to sort of, I'm not even sure what I did, but I didn't think to use that. It's kind of like the document object model that drop down, a structured view of the block architecture of the place you are at in the site. It didn't occur to me to select that and try to find the first element that I was missing. But
so, here's a button, and you've got all these great options here for the button, right? So then you got these little guys here. It's like, what the hell is that, right? Well, it's the layout to kind of make this thing, it's part of the grid, right? But there's placeholders for stuff to put in. So that's weird. And then you've got this thing here, which is just simply a set of pictures, right? Completely not obvious until you click on them what's going on here. But it's if I were to look at this, I have no idea where I'm clicking on here, but I have no idea what's selected. So again, no coherence between what's here. So like the average person that was going to use this better make a copy of this page, because you can make a complete disaster of this very quickly, right? Like really quickly, right? And so this is the challenge, I think, with this editor now, is that once you've got it going, it's fine. But once you start editing it, you better know what you're doing, because.
But I think that, Alex, is that not true for page builders in general?
That's true.
That you can get something going fairly quickly and straightforwardly, but then to go back after you've forgotten how you did it and sort of visualize sort of what you want to do next is really to do the exercise over again. Because you're not given a lot of clues in this regard. I'm not saying that they can't improve the block editor in this regard. I'm just saying that it's a problem that's hard to overcome for all sort of building editors, whether this one or a standard page builder.
Yeah, here's an example where the buttons are different, like different types of blocks actually. So
there's a learning process there, and like what you were talking about, trying to get rid of a block at the top. If you go back to that text menu thing there, you see the 3 dots on the right. You have to, I think it's left click it, and down at the bottom, you'll get a thing that says remove block. It's either right click or.
Oh yeah.
Oh, right. No, I what I was unable to do was to select the block so that I could get that drop down menu to display so I could remove the block.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Didn't matter where I clicked on the old block, it just wasn't producing the toolbar or with all the choices, so that I was, stuck at step 1. And I don't know how, as I say, I can't recall exactly what I did, but I did create that replacement block at least 3 times in different positions, hoping that would enable me to delete its predecessor.
And if you were to ask me where these quotes are that are being superimposed here, you could probably hold a knife to my neck and I still wouldn't be able to figure out where those are.
You guys have really made my day, because I was thinking that I was a complete idiot for having all these problems.
No, because this is a new product. This is a complete this is almost not WordPress at this point. Like it definitely is WordPress, but it's completely, the whole product is changing. And by the way, I learned something very interesting about Gutenberg this month. I was reading this plugin book. Turns out that all the blocks are actually all React JavaScript code.
Yep.
There's almost no PHP there. It's all JavaScript. So like
That's
the
why
whole
it's so
platform
fast.
is completely moving in a completely different direction. And some people are saying that more than half of WordPress will be JavaScript eventually. And then
On
PHP may actually be.
WordPress.com, that's the case.
What's that?
WordPress.com, that is the case.
Already.
They're using, React everywhere.
So there you go. The product is completely transforming like in front of our eyes, right? It's a completely different architecture, completely different technology. Everything you knew about PHP is like practically out the window, really.
Well, for all the problems PHP gave me over the last couple of months, I'll be glad to see it go.
Yeah, but
and you know, Alex, that we had to go and get help from that person out in Washington to sort my issues out.
Yeah. So, but I mean, yeah. So there's it's a different platform. So it's really interesting. Like, but the whole thing that's amazing. So like I'm complaining, right? But the thing is that the site is absolutely wicked fast.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's just there's nothing like.
I think the efficiency you gain from having the base tool, the editor, be the same for all sites is a tremendous potential gain from the point of view of developing sites. You have a starting point then, which basically every site should be able to follow, and then add to that a page builder, for example, but you don't necessarily have to have it. And that you don't have now. You can't build pages without the block editor if they have anything like a landing page quality or a front page or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm hoping that there will be, like when themes become very block savvy, that there will be patterns, design patterns and themes. They probably already exist, where instead of you composing a page from scratch, you get like these predefined nice patterns that are using blocks that you can just inherit and start building from. Because without that, I'm not sure anybody can compose and collect a whole bunch of blocks to create a coherent design unless they really know what they're doing.
That was intended for 5.8, but that's been delayed until the fall.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like, I mean, the coherence of the editor is very slowly becoming like better and better. You can see it incrementally getting better and better, but I think it'll take them at least 3 or 4 more years to kind of like really get all the pieces in place from the ecosystem of all the people that are contributing and actually understanding how average people actually use this thing, as opposed to how somebody that knows it intimately would use it. But I love not having a complex page builder in here. Like I just like, because the tool set is native WordPress, everything is kind of where it is, and the only thing now is like the plugins and stuff that don't use blocks are second-rate citizens, basically, because they expose themselves through shortcodes, and you kind of just have to plop a shortcode in there, and you don't have that flexibility. Like blocks could be anything, right? They could call shortcodes, they can have configuration, they could have dynamic content in them, they could be anything, right? So it's not just about presentation of text and images and videos and stuff like that. It's a lot more than that.
It's just the same disease that app and software developers have. I sort of get up every morning and say, give me this day my daily updates. Something will have to be updated when I get up in the morning.
Oh, for sure. Every day. But I've started turning on auto update now and I've got it running on a lot of plugins that support it now. I don't care.
And there's a lot of updates going on all the time too.
Yeah, I just turn on updates, and if my site breaks, I'm just gonna go revert to a backup, and that's it. I'm not gonna try to figure out when to upgrade a plugin and where not to. Just full speed ahead, just like my phone, right? Like update away, baby.
Damn the torpedoes. Yeah.
Damn the torpedoes, exactly. All right, so we're gonna get into our that was a bit of a we're gonna get into our Let's Fix Our Site. Let's see, I'm looking at the comments. I guess we'll start with Jim. Looking for a plugin that protects email addresses and mail to links from email harvesting robots. That's a good question. By
Yeah.
encoding them into decimal and hexadecimal entities. Okay. All right.
So those are two, I gave you the links there, Alex. Those are
Yep.
two different plugins I saw. I actually, the thing that reminded me of that is I actually have it on my Voice on the Web blog, but that was done years ago and I looked it up and the people haven't updated it for about the last 5 years. So those are two that seem to be active if you go to wordpress.com and ask for email, whatever you want to call it, email.
Tim, what
block.
did you think of the feature in the first plugin that you mentioned, this foggy.email technique? Is that something that you would use? This is a way to provide a kind of a front end for your email address that the plugin generates. And then when somebody mails to that address, it internally switches it to whatever address you've selected. So you don't even have displayed a version of your own email if you wish, if you want to take advantage of this email integration. Anyway, I hadn't come across that technique built into a plugin, so I wondered what you thought of it.
Well, you're the first person to describe it to me, so now I know what to go and look at and think about.
Well, I thought actually of the two plugins. I mean, I've used this obfuscation technique, but I haven't looked at any plugins in at least 5 years, that do that sort of thing. So I looked at the two plugins, and I thought the first one had a more interesting feature set. They both have the same core function, which is to make your email address unobtainable by web scrapers of whatever sort. And so the exact mechanism for that is relatively trivial, but all the options come into play then as to going beyond that. So I guess if the first choice, do you want those options? Because if not, the second plugin may be a simpler feature set. And I think it's a good general rule. Don't have a plugin with features you don't use, because that's just overhead and a performance hit you don't need.
Well, you're now giving me the feedback I was sort of looking for by putting the question up. And in the end, I'll go to the website developer and make sure she's competent enough. She'll work it in so that it doesn't interfere with the rest of the website. It's a website for our church, and the problem we had last week is that somebody sort of faked our minister's email address as another Gmail address, and that person sent out stuff to only email addresses that are on our website, sending out things. I need you to do me a favor, and then one person answered it and got back a thing saying, oh, I can't make a phone call, can you do this sort of thing? And she caught on that this was spam or phishing.
Yeah. The issue in general with protecting your emails is that the Pandora's box has been opened. So like you can do stuff on there. It doesn't mean you're not going to continue getting those emails. All right.
Yeah. So anyways, it's just, I realized, I recalled after I put that up, I recalled, gee, we did this in my Voice on the Web website, which was developed back around 2011, 2012. And the developer is very good. But he's gone on to work for Spotify or somebody like that. And I did recall that he had done something, and it's called a general obfuscation or something or other plugin. But anyways, when I looked it up on plugins, turns out it hasn't been updated since 2015 or something like that. So that's not worth following.
In general, my approach is you don't put email addresses on a website at all, ever. You put a contact form or something like that and then route it. But as long as when you publish a website, an email address on anything, if you put it on a website, you put an obfuscated one that redirects, whatever it is that you're doing, you're not really fooling anyone, right? Because in the end, if you want to get the email, it's got to go to you somehow. So if you're obfuscating it, the unobfuscation will be there. And somebody, if they want to really do something, the scraping software is incredible now.
I think the difference is that if they get your real address, then off it goes, across the internet to any
Right.
Tom, Dick, or Harry who has a thousandth of a cent to pay for it.
Right.
Whereas if they use the contact form, you'll get the spam, but it'll only be that one time because it's not
Yeah.
worth it to them to be hitting on your contact form 1,000 times and they can't sell it. So I think that if you make the address hard to obtain by one way or another, then that's a good solution to the one part of the problem. The other part of the problem is the contact form's a better approach just in general. I mean, as Alex says.
Thanks, Robin. I think I'll take a look at that as well.
The other thing is that these forms will also do your telephone number if that's been on your site before.
Right.
The second one looked like a very straightforward way to handle that in terms of how the plugin worked. And there's that plugin, the second one seemed to have a more general idea of obfuscating whatever you might want to hide, such as emails and telephone numbers, but it could be other things as well.
Yeah, the telephone number is not particularly an issue because we actually just switched over to Rogers Business from Bell because Bell in the center of Streetsville here in Mississauga, Bell doesn't have the fibe working. And we needed a faster internet service because we're putting all our services up on the internet. And we have people exchanging 2, 3, 4 gigabyte video files to even set up these service files. So it's been quite the exercise, and switching over to Rogers Business has also been a bit of a challenge, but we finally got there.
It's the upload is the issue now. The upload speeds on most systems are a fraction of download speeds, and they're asymmetric, and so the upload is what people are going to start wanting to buy soon.
About the emails and the contact. Generally, what I do is make a separate email address for the contact form. So it's one, and it's on special. And then when it goes in, we know where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
We don't put the person's real email on the form or on the website.
Mm-hmm.
I stopped doing that years ago because of spam. And but I find that and so I make this other little, like maybe contact or whatever and then it goes and it's forwarded to the owner to his real email address. So
the other thing I do actually is I set up a filter on my email with the word unsubscribe in the body of the message or in the subject. So the word unsubscribe, I create a mass filter. And if the word unsubscribes appears anywhere in the body of the message or the text or the subject, I just put it into a subfolder. So I don't even care what it is. And I don't trust spam filters. I don't trust any of them. I trust my own filters. And my own filter is simply, the word is unsubscribed is anywhere in the email body, the subject anywhere. It goes into a subfolder. It's not spam, but it's not an email I want to read. And a lot of, I would say, because people have to quote unquote follow the rules about putting an unsubscribe link, that you use that against them and actually basically put it outside of your inbox. And for most people, fixing your inbox is what you're concerned of, not the fact that most people's inboxes are a mess, right? They're just a mess, right? It's just everything, right? What you want is just only the emails that you want, and every one email that comes in that's phishing, you could probably.
What I've taken to doing this year is every time I subscribe to something or I sign up for a conference or something for the first time, then I use the Gmail plus technique of my Gmail name, the plus sign, and then something unique to whatever I'm subscribing to. Let's say it's Deezer for music. So it would be Robin M plus Deezer at gmail.com. Then I set up a filter which captures anything coming into that address and assigns it to a folder that I've created if it's anything of value that I might want to keep. Now that doesn't, and so what that does is several things, but one of them is if I start seeing emails from a variety of places that I don't remember subscribing to, I can figure out which subscription is likely to have sold my address, which happens quite infrequently, I've found so far. I've been doing this for 5 or 6 months, and I probably have, 75, 80 of these G plus addresses at work. And it only gets rejected, maybe one time in 15 or 20 times as an illegal address. But if these days, my thinking is if it's rejected as an illegal address, then I'm not going to subscribe, because this is my business, what my address is, not theirs. And if they don't like my address, well, they're clearly going to do something with my data that I'm not going to like. So,
Mhm.
So Robin, does that mean you actually set up a separate Gmail address for each one
no,
of
there's
those?
a feature of many email services, but certainly Gmail, Outlook has a similar sort of thing, and they call them different names, but you can refer to them as aliases. And so there's only one account, but anything you put after the plus sign, Gmail ignores. It doesn't consider it relevant. And so all the mail goes to my one inbox, and then the filters in the client do the sorting out depending on what the item is, whether it's a newsletter or it's an account item or what have you, because the filter and folder combination I've created at the time I did the Gmail address, makes it like 3 different components that fit together and work neatly that way. But
So you put up you set up a folder in Outlook for each of those plus addresses,
right.
and
Depending on which
redirection.
category, is it a subscription? Is it an account? Is it
Yeah.
a newsletter? Those are, different things going into different folders. But the key point is that there's no paperwork when you create this, what I call a G plus address or Gmail plus address. You just create it in the form when you subscribe. And then, of course, I record it to keep track of it and know why did I do this? When did I do this? Who am I subscribing to or whatever? And that's just a sort of a minimal way of tracking and controlling what's out there, sending you things, and where do they originate from.
Does this apply to any email address domain? Like, does it
No.
have to be
Well,
Gmail?
as I say, the 2 biggest, email services are Google and Outlook. And while they call them slightly different things, they're effectively the same mechanism. Multiple names, same account, up to you to figure out what to do to sort them out and how to handle them.
I just shared it's called a task-specific email address. So G Suite and Gmail kind of invented this idea, and some of the other services are starting to add it, but
I think they call them aliases in Outlook.
What they call aliases? Oh, okay.
I think that's what they're called. I mean, I looked it up a year or so ago. And it's a simple sort of concept, and I think it'll become fairly standard.
Good idea.
Because of the fact that you don't want anybody who takes my address and uses it for some other service or account than mine or me, well, I'd like to know about it and I'll do something about it. So I found one particular conference that I signed up for. There must be at least a dozen or 15 different companies that now have that address. And I know where it came from because it says right in the address.
Yeah.
So I just immediately unsubscribe the first time it comes around and get rid of them. But I'm not confused then about like, where did this come from? Did I forget that I subscribed? Do I have to go and look up what this thing is that I'm about to delete?
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
By the way, one other thing I might mention as an aside is I also told this person that she has to do 2-factor authentication for her Google login.
Yeah.
That turns out, I've just found out, there was an article last week that is going to become mandatory with Google sometime in the near future. That you'll actually have to do 2-factor login.
I believe that. I think a lot of systems are going to. I have probably about 10 2-factors on my authenticator system. So yeah, that's going to become more standard because there's just no way of you can't teach people to set good passwords, period. It's just not.
Yeah, no, they said that they're really trying to figure out a way to get rid of logins. So,
Yeah.
Well, I must say, I found the iPhone's face recognition method of logging in to be an absolute godsend from just the point of view of convenience. I mean, there's just nothing like not having a login at all. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
whether it's biometric or facial or what have you,
Yeah.
they're very handy, and the inconvenience of being masked, instantly arises. But
well,
that
at
won't
this
be a
point,
problem forever.
actually, with the latest iOS upgrade, and I got to use this yesterday, even though you're wearing a mask, if you're wearing your Apple Watch, it takes a look at that and says, okay, he's here, and overrides the fact
Yeah,
that
actually,
you got a
Apple
mask on.
Apple touts that particular feature as I think one of the top 3 or 4 features in that
In that new
14.5.1
version.
release.
Yeah.
And the top feature that they cited for iPhones around the world that, you know, are right up to date is that you now have in an emoji couple different skin tones for the 2 people. That's their big technological advance that they've offered the iPhone world.
Oh,
Well,
we're
that
so
was,
woke.
frankly, that was a
What
skin tone.
nonsense. What complete crap.
It's amazing. Can
Well,
you imagine?
actually, no, there's a study.
Okay, guys, Robin, can you take over the meeting? I have to actually run to something else. So do you mind just continuing on?
Sure. As I told you in our Slack message, I'm out of here at 7:30 though.
Okay, so we have
That's
a half
okay.
more hour. So the chat, there's some more stuff in the chat, guys. Have a great time. I'll continue recording.
So how do we shut that off?
When you shut off, it'll shut off the recording.
If you're a co-host, you can shut it off.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So in other words, I'll get the control.
I'm assigning it.
Yeah.
I'm assigning it.
So what I was trying to say, Robin, is there's a study done at U of T
Yep.
on this skin tone issue that one of the engineering, I don't know if it's a grad student or something, has done. And it has been determined that that can be an issue in facial recognition.
Oh,
I
it's
think-
more than an issue. It actually appears to undercut fundamentally the capability of facial recognition AI to work at all. And
Yeah, I think,
unfortunately,
I
AI
can-
researchers got caught with their pants down because it turns out that their systems just can't recognize Black people at all.
Yeah.
They think Black people are gorillas. And when Google got caught labeling Black people gorillas, they just took out that whole part of the AI program and said, oh, that's not going to work. And so, you know, you're completely right. There's been a number of really embarrassing articles explaining that AI has some really basic limitations. So don't get too hot and, you know, excited about things. They're quite a ways from being useful. And so now we have this
It's an issue
horrible
of-
problem of people who are being jailed or people who are being denied bail because the facial recognition program, you know, can't tell a doorknob from a horse's ass. And so, you know, really bad things are happening because of the lack of disclosure about the extreme limitations of these tools. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But if you're Black, you know, you're basically either an African animal of some sort, or it doesn't have any idea what to do with you.
Now, the other thing is I just got the new iPad Air 4 that uses the fingerprint stuff on the on-off button. They haven't got around to doing facial recognition on that.
Is the facial recognition considered more advanced than the thumb identification?
Well, you've had the thumb identification for a while. I mean, it's even on my wife's iPhone 7.
Because I never thought much of it. I mean, it didn't appeal to me. I never had it on an iPhone. My first experience of this is the facial recognition. And so the fact that we don't know whether it works well or not. It lets us into our own phone, but it could be letting anybody who looks sort of like us also. We don't know because who tests these things, right?
Yeah. Well,
so it's another one of these great leaps of faith that
the beauty of the fingerprint recognition too is it even works in the dark. So it's obviously sensing something.
That's true.
And even the facial recognition works in the dark.
So do we have any WordPress questions that we can address? Somebody
yeah, let's go back to WordPress.
Put in the yes, Leah.
Hi, so I had submitted a question yesterday. I'm working on a site in the Jack's Light theme, doing a site for a friend of mine. And whenever I hit the back button, the site just freaks out and it won't load and it spins and spins and spins. And
Now you say you hit the back button, you mean you're on a page and you wish to go back one to the previous page.
Correct.
And your site won't reload from history.
Exactly.
Because that's what it is. There's a thing called history that counts as you go forward and back. And, you know, we normally jump in steps, but they could be jump back 3 steps, jump forward 3 steps. So anybody got any thoughts on why a site might go ahead?
Yeah, I should preface this by saying I'm a total beginner, so.
Okay.
What browser are you in, Leah?
Well, I've tried it both in Safari and in Chrome, and the same thing happens.
And wait a second, you're up to date in these browsers?
Mhm.
And your
Yeah.
site is up to date?
Well, I just started developing it about 3 or 4 days ago, so.
Okay, so it's
yeah.
the current version as
It's
of 3 or
current.
4 days ago.
Correct.
And you have a current browser.
Yes, I do.
So it's unlikely to be a cache problem, right? Trying to bring up the previous page from a cache rather than get a new copy of the page. What about if you just simply copy and paste the URL, the address of the page again? You're on the page, you just copy the URL, re-enter it, hit return. Does it then display the page afresh?
I don't know if I've tried that, but I can try it because I have it open right now. So let's see what happens. If I'll go to the About page.
Yeah, why don't you,
It loads. Does it make sense to give you the URL and someone?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure,
Okay.
and then I'll put it up.
Okay, fabulous. So
Give me a
it's
second here.
okay.
So what is it?
Dain, D-A-I-N.
D-A-I-N, yep,
Research.
research.
.com.
Right, share my screen. Which one is it?
That's just the first of many problems that I'm having. And I don't know if it's the theme. It's a fairly new theme. I'm just worried that maybe some of the bugs haven't been worked
There it
out,
is.
but I don't know.
Okay, so you see the page now?
Yep.
Okay, so you're saying that if you go to this first post, I guess this is a way to check our browsers. All right, and then it's just click back.
Right. It worked for you.
Let's try another one.
If you-
Let's
yeah,
try
try
a page
something.
next.
Try something from the menu.
Yeah, okay.
Top right. Yeah, because that's where
Those
I.
are the pages, right?
Right.
So we'll see what the about page does. So now let's go back.
Huh.
That's where we were. This suggests that it's a browser problem.
Okay.
And so one of the things that is generally said when you have something to do with the browser is clear the cache.
Okay. I did try that once. I was online with the host with Green Geeks, and they tried clearing the cache and it didn't work for them. So maybe something's changed in the meantime.
Yeah. Have you Googled the problem to see what it said?
Hey there, I'm Christina with W.
If anybody's reported, I wouldn't use the term back button, but rather, back -1 history, WordPress display problem, something like that.
Okay.
WP Beginner.
Well, this.
I'm sorry, Dale, what were you saying?
It's not me talking.
Okay. Hey, there's Dan.
If you use that link first. So once you get set up, you can see this special page, and you see that normally it's about $9 a month, $9 or $10 a month. With this,
Does anybody know who's talking?
for the first year?
No, not me.
SSL certificate and the SSL.
Okay.
And that just makes sure.
I guess we'll just
that
ignore that.
it is-
So anybody have any suggestions on what else might be tried other than doing a Google search and getting the term history in there? And I guess
On that-
term display and WordPress, are the key
Okay,
things.
on that left arrow you went to, Robin,
Yes,
at the top,
yep.
do a right, yeah, I think it's a right
You want to go
click.
forward and then go,
No, do a right click. You should get a list of the previous pages.
yeah. Mind you, I started on that page, but this will now show us 2 pages or
Yeah.
3 pages.
And you can always drop down that list.
Have to worry about. That's first.
So wherever
Right,
you-
but I'm not sure that's the point. I think the point is that when she
Okay,
went back one step from in history,
Yeah.
the page was not loading
You only get one website.
from what it was when she was just there. And so we're not showing that problem now, but it did occur. So it's real.
It happened again when I went to the menu and I clicked on home
Right?
and it spun. So I,
Okay, give me a second. I'll just try photography and then we'll try home again.
okay.
Home from the menu.
Do unlimited. For this tutorial, I'll simply choose the basic. Then here, this is where you create your new domain name or the website where you're going to send
Huh.
Interesting, it says up here,
in.
page, oh, wait a second. Well, that's the tab I'm in. Page not found. It's not getting the page title. What? That's because the content wasn't found.
Huh.
What do we just do? I was at the photography page
Right.
and then I went to the home page from the menu and it couldn't find home.
Want to fill out all of this
Yeah, it doesn't go back to the landing page and I don't.
Right, but that's
understand
because
why.
I suspect the menu, the link in the menu setting is wrong. It isn't the correct page. It's what you've got is your 404 page. Hey, I couldn't find it. This is what's provided by default in WordPress, or rather built into WordPress. But I
Oh,
can't find a
okay.
link. It displays this page on your site. The page looks like this. On somebody else's site, the page can look different, but it's the same result. Content not found, or 404 is the technical message.
How do I relink it?
Well, you go to your min panel and to menus,
Mhm.
where the menu itself is constructed, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And each item in the menu is in a little block. And the very first block will be the link for the home page.
Okay.
And that link will be either broken or non-existent.
Uh,
So in WordPress, just Google, fix menu WordPress, menu,
Okay. All right.
and that'll take you to the menu configuration page from the dashboard, and there you'll see the settings. One thing to bear in mind is that you have to save the menu when you're done. You'll see changes that you make, but you've
Mhm.
got to remember to save the menu before you leave the page.
Okay.
There are other parts of WordPress that don't require that, but the menu definitely does. And I've made that mistake.
Okay.
Anybody else have a suggestion or
I do.
contribution?
I have a suggestion.
Yep.
Mute everyone's mic. Someone's playing their TV or radio in the background and they don't know their mic's on.
Who's not muted?
Well, the administrator for this Zoom can mute all the
Right, so
mics.
I'll just mute everybody.
And quizzes to help you with your web design skills. So today in this video, I'll be showing you how to build your new website with WordPress and Elementor. WordPress powers more than 500 million websites.
Maybe it could be me. Let me just make sure there's nothing running here.
Making websites. As of 2021, WordPress powers more than 40.
Sounds like it is you, Robin.
Yeah, but where's it coming from? There's nothing running that I can see. It sounds like it stopped.
It's stopped now, yeah.
Forgive me.
It stopped.
Okay, so let me bring you guys back then.
That was funny. So can I ask you a question? So that landing page photo is a panorama cityscape, and I am only seeing on your screen one tiny bit of a building.
I mean, this thing here,
Yeah, and I don't understand why.
Higher internet.
we've had a number of issues
WordPress.
for people who bring a problem with images not appearing as they expect.
Yeah.
And what often happens, or at least what we found in several cases, to be sure,
Uh-huh.
is that in the customizer settings, where the header image is identified or specified,
Uh-huh.
there will be options about how you size the image. And what you have to do is experiment with those settings to find settings that get your image displayed as you want, because it will not be as obvious as take the image size, plug in the image numbers, the header's good to go. The header itself has to be big enough for the image size you selected. So you need to go to the documentation for the theme
Okay.
and say, okay, where does it tell me how to configure the header? And more specifically, how do I make sure the image is not bigger than the header in terms of the height of the image in particular, right?
Right.
Like if your image isn't displaying fully, then that would suggest that the image size
Mhm.
is too large for the header space provided to that image.
Okay, they had recommended 1920 by 478, so I resized it to 1920 by 478, and
Yes, but what is the header itself? Are its dimensions set to accommodate that image? All I'm saying is I don't know, but you need to check in the documentation to see if there's a setting that controls the height of the header, right?
right.
So that it's big enough to accommodate that image.
That's what they recommended, though.
And what setting was set for the header? Did you stay with the default setting?
Yeah. Yeah, default, and it said images 1920 by 478 fit perfectly, and that's what I did, but it's not, and it's showing even
Well,
less.
actually, but 1920 is going to be substantially reduced because the display we've got here, this window is actually, let me just see, 1200 pixels wide.
Oh.
Right? So you have, so WordPress does this resizing for you. And what they say is make sure your image is bigger than the space that you plan to display it in, and then resizing occurs to get it to fit in there. It's always better to have too big an image than too small an image. But this issue arises with headers where the image seems to be chopped off halfway. And it's that interaction of two variables, that this background image's dimensions and the header's dimensions. Those are the two things that work. So the answer lies there.
Okay, all right.
Anybody have a suggestion or an idea?
What theme are you using here?
It's called Jax Light, Jax.
And what made you pick that particular theme?
Well, my friend liked it because it was very simple, good for blogs. I personally didn't, want to use that because it's so new. I wanted something more tried and true, but yeah.
Because I've gone through over the years many different themes, and recently I've sort of got rid of them all and settled on Cadence with a K. It's a free theme, doesn't cost you any money. But one of the things about the Cadence theme that is marvelous is the control that it gives you over the header and the footer, which of course is what all themes are designed to do. But for example, in the Cadence theme, you have 3 rows for the header and you have 3 rows for the footer. And so you can put the menu in one row, you can put the logo in another row. So you have all this control. But one of the other things that's very nice about the Cadence theme is that when you put an image, even in a block or in I believe it applies as well in the theme, is you can actually go into the image and there's a control that allows you to move the image around. So in your case where you have the building sort of cut off, in the Cadence theme, I'm pretty sure that you could go into that photo image when you put it in the theme and move it around. So you can actually move the buildings up and to the right and have it positioned the way you want to have it.
This is an alternative to editing the image directly.
Yes.
Yeah, I edit the image directly. I usually shrink it down. I make it a little bigger than it's supposed to be, but not too much so that it doesn't
Right.
get in my way.
This is not a block compliant theme that you're using, is it? It's just like a regular theme. It's not a Gutenberg sort of block theme, because the theme that Richard's talking about, the Cadence theme, also comes along with a set of additional blocks, just by the by, Cadence blocks. But the advantage of a theme, which is block ready, block friendly, whatever the term is that whatever you learn about that theme will be 90% applicable to any other block ready theme. That is not true of other themes in general. Themes in general tend to be highly specific to the developer, right? developers. And the more popular the theme, the more it goes off in its own direction, and you have to learn how that works. And so if you learn to build a site using blocks or full site editing as it's coming, this problem doesn't arise in this way. We'll go to the customizer, find the header. You just have a block that you're thinking of as the header, right? And so what you are doing is happening right in front of you. That's a big advantage to having a customizer where you input stuff and then you have to see how it's reflected and back and forth, and one variable interacts with another. Not that I'm biased, but
well, the other thing that I found, and that touches on the other problem that you had, and I wish I could say I'm an expert, but an expert is really nothing more than a drip under pressure. Before I used the Cadence theme, I used the Astra theme, and I used it in conjunction with Elementor. And it was a very nice combination. You could do lots of things. But one of the things that frustrated me beyond belief, I was doing all my hosting on SiteGround, which is a fairly advanced hosting company. I mean, it's not a down and dirty hosting company by any stretch of imagination. But every time I would make changes to the website, it would reflect the changes in some browsers and not in others. And then if it went to my phone, it seemed to take almost 24 hours for the change to show up. And I blamed Rogers for that. And I was tearing my hair out trying to figure out, why is this happening? And I still don't know why it was happening. All I know is that since I started using the Cadence theme and the Cadence blocks, that problem has disappeared.
Are you using a caching plugin?
Yes.
Well, SiteGround, of course, uses SG Optimizer.
Yep. That's
Right.
it.
That is a plugin, right?
It is a plugin, yes.
Have you tried just turning it off?
Yes, and that helped somewhat.
Right. Because if you're not getting updates to all devices, I mean, one reason could be you're not flushing the cache after your changes so that the changed version is being sent out. And then you have caching issues at the ISP, which you've noted in the case of Rogers. And then you have caching issues with the browsers.
Right.
Right.
That's right on.
So I mean, there's caching all over the place. Everybody's trying to, make things more efficient, and in the process, making life somewhat more complicated.
Well, and SiteGround aggravates the issue because they also offer Cloudflare as a CDN.
Right, but that's not the same thing as caching.
Okay.
I mean, it's got caching,
yeah,
but it's not just caching.
Okay, but I found that also created some issues.
I think is it not more so than just caching? It's the time that is set for the caching to be renewed, and if that is not updated, then because I've seen that happen to my theme only when I'm doing font changes or the color of fonts or something. For whatever reason, I have to wait a while for it to come around. And I'm like, this is driving me crazy. I just changed it. Why don't I see it? My cache is off. But I suspect somewhere in the guts of all of that, out in the cyberspace, the time,
the TTL in the DNS settings.
Well, no, I don't know exactly the word for it, but in your core files there, it's gonna, for the caching, it's going to say, okay, photos are not going to need to be updated in the browser cache, for whatever you set, a week, a month, and then other things that change quite often, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know, fonts must be set for like they'll never change or something for me, because
if you've ever wondered why it is that the page builders have such strange names for the CSS files they generate, it's because they always generate a unique CSS file name with every change made, even if it's just one character, they get a new file because that triggers the cache to be refreshed for that particular resource or object, right?
Yes. I'm just saying it's
right.
Never...
So I think what we're referring to is latency. How frequently does the cache update for a particular kind of resource or object?
Yeah,
right?
there's
and I think Dan's making an excellent point that Google or Cloudflare or whoever would make the logical sort of decision that fonts don't get changed very often. Let's update those the least frequently of all. let's do text updates very frequently because that's the content that people actually handle, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, is it standard for caching plugins, Dan, to have this multiple choice for setting the frequency of refreshes? Because I don't remember that when I was using the last time I was in WP Rocket.
I've seen, well, I use Lightspeed and not.
I think I use Lightspeed as well. Is it on Lightspeed?
If you look in the HT access file, you'll see there's prescribed durations for, be it JPEGs, be it, certain file formats.
Yeah, I've looked in HT access files lots of times. I don't remember seeing that. Is that something new?
Well, I guess Lightspeed writes that. I don't know.
I mean, I've got Lightspeed, sites, so
yeah,
it's interesting just for everyone. Just as SiteGround has its SG Optimizer plugin, which hooks you up to its internal caching scheme, this Lightspeed reference that Dan's making is other ISPs, hosts, rather, you have the Lightspeed subsystem, and that has a plugin that connects the site and enables you to manage some aspects of it. So if you're with you should check your host to see what caching the host is providing, whether you have any control over it when a problem like this arises, and look to see, can I control or can I cause a refreshing of the cache because I just made changes and I want to see the results right away. And you may or may not have that option depending on, the services that your host provides. But the Lightspeed instance I'm familiar with, and also the SiteGround and its optimizer.
Now, Name Hero is a hosting company that uses, I believe, Lightspeed.
Yeah.
One of the things I liked about Name Hero is that they use SSD and now the new SMDE or whatever they're called, digital drives. Anybody using Name Hero?
I think that's becoming pretty much the standard. I'm not sure if I've seen a host in 6 months that didn't offer SSDs.
Okay.
Yeah.
SSDs are solid state devices, SSD, and they're what Macs, for example, now come with as standard equipment. I'm sure Windows notebooks are the same, or desktop machines that you get. The memory, it's not a hard drive, which is an old technology involving platters that spin, right?
Yeah.
And now it's a solid state with no moving parts and very small. I just bought another one, and it's about, half the size of a pack of cigarettes, maybe a little smaller than that. And it has 500 gigabytes and is blazingly fast, and at least twice as fast as the SSD that Apple gave me.
Yes.
And a quarter of the price. And you just plug them in and they're good to go.
It's a wonderful thing, that is.
The only problem is that for external drives is you have to have a fast connection, right? Because the internal connection of a drive within a machine is almost always quite fast. And then when you plug an external drive in, you can be on a connection that just doesn't take advantage of the speed of the disk.
Well, usually you're on a USB connection, eh?
Right. And so there's a difference between USB and USB 2 and USB 3 or 3.2 or whatever.
And now they got USB careful.
But I must say, I'm madly in love with these SS drives. When I got the first one in my MacBook Air, I just thought it was, a pretty exciting toy.
When you can boot in 10 seconds, that's
yeah.
You think you've died and gone to heaven.
Well, that's the problem, though, I think, with the new machine is that the new machine seems so incredibly fast. And then the longer you own it, the slower it gets.
Oh, always. It's like us when
we
get old.
Our own perception, but partly because of the nature of the industry, and product obsolescence. In any event, it's 7:34, and I had told Alex that I had to bug out at 7:30.
Oh, we're keeping you overtime.
Yeah, but I hate to shut it off because we're having a good time.
Well, no, we do this. We do this every month. Yeah.
I have a question for the group here.
Sure, fire away.
Yeah, I'm right now looking for another web hosting company. I'm with Web Hosting Canada. And
Sorry,
They're giving
and did you sign up directly with them, or were you with a company they bought?
no, directly with them.
Okay.
Yeah, Web
Good.
Host Canada.
Because Dale's on WHC too, right?
I do
Yeah.
have clients there. I'm on Bluehost, but that's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I thought you
Yeah.
were on WHC.
No, I know, but I have all my clients on WHC. Yeah, I deal
Yeah.
with them.
Anyway, yeah, I've been there for about 6 months, and they give me a lot of grief every time I've been upgrading because I have one site that needs a lot more resources than just shared hosting, and so there's some incompetence. I mean, there always is incompetence. I've been at this for 20 years, and every web hosting company I go to, it's like, oh my God, you guys are morons. But you have to live with some of that. But this is getting a bit silly because I'm paying for web hosting management, and now I've got a VPS, right?
So you're in managed hosting.
Yeah. But you wouldn't know it because I keep finding the problems that they have to manage. So
Why not try something like Kinsta that
Yeah.
has an excellent reputation for its managed services, or one of the other big guys that are quite popular?
Right. I just need to hear anyone who
Managed WP,
has
for example, gets
experience.
excellent reviews.
Yeah.
And I guess I started out with SiteGround with the sort of top of the line plan. And after
Yeah.
like 3 years, decided I just wasn't making use of it. So I switched down, and I've now left them and gone somewhere else that has excellent service, but is an economy sort of plan. And I'm thinking that really it's a false economy to save, $20 a month and spend 2 or 3 hours a month more than you need to fixing problems that are boring and may never occur again. So my feeling is now it's worth spending the extra money and getting into that top tier or the middle tier, what it really is, because there's 3 or 4 firms there. What's the one?
Cloudways.
My mind's just gone blank.
Cloudways.
Cloudways. Cloudways.
No, it was the one that sort of focused on designers and sort of so-called creative types. Flywheel, or what's it called? Just slips my mind right now, but it's one of the 4 or 5 that are generally regarded as the best of that middle tier, the managed service hosts, and I think that's worth the extra $20 or so or $25 a month maximum.
Right. But Robin, the problem always is this: trying to shop around for web hosting. The internet is full of dubious reviews, full of people saying, "Oh, we're so great."
Right, but that's why I think though that if you the ones that I've mentioned, like Kinsta, really are well known. I mean, I don't even think you need a review. You just go and look at the features. I think the reputation is pretty well established. And so just as with SiteGround, I mean, even though they screw up sometimes or don't give you the answer as quickly as you want, they have a good reputation, especially if you're in one of the upper tiers. And I found them to be good people. Just, I've gotten to know when they come to trade from WordCamps, talking to their people, that they seem to, do pretty well. And they always come up close to the top, if not the top, of hosting surveys.
But things have changed over at SiteGround in the last couple of months.
Yeah, they're expensive now.
They're very expensive now.
I'm not saying they're the only one, but I'm just saying that they had good reputation. But I think these managed service providers that I've mentioned, or anybody that's been around for 3 or 4 years or more, and is a participant in the community, and quite actively, which these guys tend to be, are really the sort of the safest bet.
Excuse me, Dan.
Yes.
I have a friend, a woman I know who does what you're doing with Web Hosting Canada.
Yeah.
She's been doing it for a while. Do you know anybody who's doing the same with them? I'm wondering if I know Robin has to go. Can you contact me and maybe I can set it up so you can talk with her and maybe she knows how to get around the problems you've got.
No, it's not so much that, Dale, it's,
You've lost confidence in the people.
yeah, I've lost confidence, like, I just went through I went to an upgrade over the weekend, and, something very obvious. So I had the starter cloud package and I went for the pro package, right?
Yeah.
And so they just moved me over, great. And then suddenly all my 9 sites are having a 4 or 5 second delay before anything starts to get displayed on a page.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah, that's a traffic killer, especially since my weekends are the busiest. So I'm like, well, what's going on? And they're like, well, maybe it's this. First of all, it's always me. It's my problem. Oh, your sites are too slow. Like, don't give me that, A couple of days ago, they were great. Now they're not.
I think that's one of the very first things that I think you want to look for in hosting support is how do they approach a problem? Is it like, okay, let's get to work and solve this problem. The relatively cheap hosting that I have right now for my own personal stuff, you'd think would be fairly poor in support. Just so happens they're not. They're quite responsive. They're not English speakers natively, but pretty close. You learn, for example, don't ask a question with multiple parts. Ask
that's right.
A simple question and then pose another simple question and then pose a third simple question. Force them to deal with each one, because otherwise they'll answer the first nor the second, and then you're left with having to follow up with a new request.
Very
what
true.
About that old one? Is it still active? And so you need to learn how to manage that. The other thing that I do is I do keep track of my interactions with them. And if anything doesn't seem right, then in 10 seconds, I can have, in effect, the transcript or the thread that we're on instantly to somebody. Like, in other words, I'm ready to argue.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm exhausted from all the nonsense, because the end of the story is I upgraded, and the whole weekend they're saying, is this, is that, whatever. And then finally I find out Monday morning, oh yeah, you know what? You have to upgrade to the light speed package because it doesn't come with it like the previous plan had. And I'm like, oh, right, great. So you let 2-3 days go by and no one knew this, and you just let me upgrade, and you just let this 5-second traffic killer happen.
That sounds like they're not used to dealing with business sites.
Well, they're supposed to have like thousands and thousands.
Right, but I'm just saying though that if you're supporting a significant number of businesses, you can't get away with that. I mean, people just revolt.
I know. So I am exhausted. Like you're saying, go for their throat. But frankly, I'm like, how much? I'm just want to move. I don't know if I'm going to bother dickering around to get $20 credit.
Go to one of the managed service guys that I mentioned. There's at least 3 or 4 to choose from.
Yeah.
I would go to the either the Flywheel one or the Kinsta one. I find the things that I've noticed about Kinsta in terms of the features, the stuff they put out, they publish, their sort of technical savvy seems to be, and that, I mean, blogging for these hosts is to demonstrate their technical chops, right?
Yeah.
To show that they understand something about this business they're in. And so reading their blog posts about what they're doing can be helpful.
Yeah.
And I found theirs to be uniformly good quality.
Yeah, there's a Canadian company called Hawk Host that my cousin uses. You see, I'm looking for a referral. I'm looking for somebody who's actually been with Kinsta to say, yeah, they're good. Because if you read these websites, all their mumbo jumbo.
Why not post? Why not go to Twitter and just list 3 different hosts and say, anybody got positive feedback on any of these 3? I'm about to change.
Yeah.
Give me some ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm looking around on the Facebook pages and things for that as well.
Hey, Drew.
Dale, the problem is you got far too much hair. You need to pull it out, man.
Yes.
Don't worry, it's going gray quickly.
Have we been any help to you, Dan?
Yeah, you know what? It's an ongoing problem for anyone trying to find web hosting. You're never so sure because, hey, they also can put up their own websites. They're in the business that say, oh, that company's great. Meanwhile, it's
Right,
guess
but
who?
I don't think the quality companies do that. I don't think they piss around with phony reviews and
Oh my, Robin, please. They're in the business
not to the
of
extent
web
that you're
hosting.
referring
You
to.
don't think they could host their own fake sites and say,
I don't think they do. I think they'd be too embarrassing to get caught.
absolutely, they do. Oh my God.
Wow. Okay, guys. Well, on that, it's an
Yeah.
unfortunate note to conclude
Yeah.
our festivities.
Anyway,
tonight.
Robin, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Robin. I'm sorry we kept you so late today.
Hey, no problem. I'm glad to help out, and we'll see you all in another month's time. We're finishing early tonight, Drew.
Okay.
Just this one particular occasion. So unfortunately, you've come too late to get much out of it. But in any event, we'll gather again and do this once more.
All right. Been
Okay,
fun,
guys.
everybody.
Ciao.
Bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Okay.
All right.
Ciao.
Bye, everyone.
Stay safe.
Yeah.